Hey everyone, so I haven't made a video for a week or so. I've been trading pretty badly for the last week. It's not really it's not really like horrible or anything like that. It's difficult conditions. I deviated a bit too far from my strategy, got pretty lazy with my prep, and just had a lot of days where I'd sort of like bounced from like having a max loss day and then an okay green day and then a max loss day and then a green day, and it was starting to get in my head a little bit that I was I wouldn't say gambling at all. I'd say more forcing trades is probably the best thing to do. So today I actually had my biggest ever winning trades on IMTE. Kind of came out of nowhere. We've been looking for this kind of move for a while, but didn't expect it to give this kind of a move so quickly. So maybe could have made more on it, but I think I can't complain with how much I made in it. And I thought that I would use today as an opportunity to actually show you my process on how I worked on my trading over the weekend and this morning. And although, you know, whatever mindset I'd have been in, I'd have probably taken this trade because it is exactly what I look for. I do think it's important to understand how you can review and improve your own trading. So I'll go through the trade first of all because that's the interesting part, and then I'll go through how I made what I did to improve. So first of all, the watch list today there was IMTE. I also liked GMDA, which unfortunately didn't give me an entry, which was a shame because it obviously has sold off. I also quite like the potential of SBEV if we could push higher. MYNZ after a big day yesterday. FATH, which was coming into all-time highs, and then potentially GMVD as well. But for the most part, the focus was on IMTE. We're up a huge amount. The potential for it to come down is getting bigger and bigger. I don't know if it's a pump and dump. The one thing that is interesting is that this is a stock that has historically ran up into this area, this sort of like $11 area, and then come down again and again and again. And it felt like only a matter of time that it was going to do that. And in the past, it's also come down with a fair amount of conviction. So there was all that potential. Last week I tried trading this a few times and screwed up a few times on it. So it was nice to finally bag it today and probably end up only down a little bit on the name in total. So I'll go through the actual trades. Let's move this over here. The thought process going in, which I'll go through in a little bit more detail, is I always like to wait for a false move higher. Something that I got a little bit lazy with just, last week I saw this move in here as a false move higher and it just wasn't. So I was really keen to wait for a clear amount of buying pressure to come in to then identify for a short with this push off the open, and I was trying initially to get short into VWAP in here and unfortunately didn't get filled. I ended up making a bit of a mistake on this one because I decided that I'd leave an order in to try and get filled at VWAP and just risking off the highs, and unfortunately did get squeezed out. And I thought this might do this given that this is how the stock has traded for the past week, it feels like. But in my back testing, I did pick up on a number of times stocks when they set up, didn't quite give me an entry, took out low of day, but then came up, rejected VWAP and sold off anyway. So I took it because I know that there's my strategy was a pretty high win percentage when this happens. Really good risk reward as well. So I wanted to take the trade there. Unfortunately, got stopped out as we took out the highs. But it wasn't a very big loss. I lost $72 on it, so really not that big of a deal. We then had a really nice setup on this. This is pretty much A plus for what I look for. Like I said, we've taken out the high of day. Huge volume candle here. Whether it's buyers, whether it's shorts getting squeezed, it doesn't really matter. It's the highest volume candle we've actually had. We didn't have one this high yesterday. We haven't had one this high since a few days ago when it did really big volume when it looked like it was going to sell off. So maybe it stopped a lot of shorts out. Maybe it took a lot of longs. It doesn't really matter. That came in. And what you'd expect to see when this happens, like we had on this day, when a high gets taken out, you'd expect it to continue. And it didn't do that. So whenever that happens, I'm then watching to see what it does if it pulls back to VWAP. It did pull back to VWAP. It held it initially. And then once it came down, it came down and it clearly broke VWAP, came down to 1161. I put in an order and got filled 150 shares originally at 1172. I think it was 1172, 1173. And as per my strategy, I then just put in a stop limit order to get filled when we took out 1130, and my stop on this was going to be around about 1185 and probably even 1181. So I was fine to pretty much double up on my position, which meant I had 300 shares short. Just put these in for reference. I don't know exactly where I got in. It was somewhere around here. I then had 300 shares short. Just put this here. At an average of 1148.50. The risk, like I said, was probably in the ballpark of 30 cent, maybe a touch more than that. So looking around about $100 maximum risk on this. The idea is that when it takes out low of day, the win percentage increases fairly substantially, and it's also very likely that we get momentum, and therefore the stop actually moves down anyway. So there's a strong likelihood that it's not going to be full risk. And yeah, it began selling off, and I was looking at the sort of areas of potential support. Obviously, $11 was going to be natural support. I thought if we could break that, there wasn't really anything until 1060, and then around about 10, etc. So my thought process was, if we can take out low of day, take out 11, I would look to try to catch the move down maybe to 1056. However, given that this has had many like false moves lower over the past few days, I was very happy to just say I'm just going to put an order out at 1056. And I initially got filled half my position at 1076. I initially got half my position filled at 1076, so I got half out here. And then as it came into 10, I actually decided that I wouldn't hold the rest of my position through the hole, which I probably should have done. And I took out another 75 shares, I think 10 at 1026. So I could have done a little bit better. I could have either held my initial position for more of this move, or maybe not taken any more out. It did happen very quickly. My focus had to switch from one screen onto this one when it all started happening, so I can forgive myself for that. And in all fairness, my targets initially was to get half out around here and then half out in the low tens. I figured if I could get an average of 1056, then I would make around about 300 on it, which is 3 to 1 and way more than that the average loss. So I can't really blame myself too much for following my strategy. So I ended up with about 75 shares left, which I took out as we came into this hole. I took 40 out into this hole, and then I just threw an order out to get the final 35 out, and I did get a really good exit on the final piece. I got 826, which was very close to the low. So I ended up nailing the trades. It was one of those where the opportunity presents itself. Fortunately, I was in the trade with okay size and was able to take advantage of it. It's obviously a massive move. Looking back, like I said, it is A+ for what I tried to trade. And yeah, all in all, I'll bring over my thing. See the first trade lost 72 on, second trade made 412 on. Nice day, but like I said, January as a whole started to look a little bit poor, and I'll go through sort of like last week's trades real quick. Going into the week, let's see what day we started on. So 16th. So going into the week, 18th, I was actually up around about $39 on the month, so pretty much break even. And I just didn't trade all that well. These are all the trades from that, and we can see that I lost around 250, so really not that much. You know, it's slightly more than the maximum losing day. The thing that frustrated me was that there was a lot of trades that we can see here. I've given myself a 0 on the daily chart. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of about 12 trades that shouldn't have even been looked at because the daily charts didn't make sense. There's also quite a few C-grade. Well, C-grade trades haven't been an issue. The problem was that I took a few of these here, which I gave myself B at the time, and on reflection, they were probably more like C-grade trades. So there's a lot of poor trading, a lot of trades that just shouldn't have been taken, and I forced it. And what that meant is towards the end of the week, I was a little bit wound up and annoyed at myself. I think I put a bit too much pressure on what I was trying to do. I did catch BBIG, fortunately. That was a really nice trade. But I then missed out on probably 4 or 5 really good trades to end the week, and ended up unfortunately taking a few which I don't think were necessarily bad trades, but got stopped out for decent sized losses on quite a few of them in trades that just weren't really that great. So bit of misfortune, bit of poor trading. And what I decided to do was go back and just begin going back through the days and identifying trades and begin tracking them a little bit just to remind myself of what my exact strategy looks like. And in doing so, I created a bit of a list. So that the first thing I did was, I'll just bring this over here. The first thing I did was realize that I needed to refine what 100%, what an A plus setup looks like for me. Exactly what my if then statements are for getting into trades. What contributes to false breakout? Does it need to be a key level from previous day? Does it have to be an open range breakout? All these kind of things. So I want to really clearly define what my strategy was. And I also just did a quick review of my January as a whole and found that the daily charts I was talking about, where I look back at a chart and go, that one I shouldn't have even been considering, cost me just under $1,000, around about $900 to $1,000 in the first 3 quarters of January. So it meant that a month which is slightly red could have very easily been up 700-800 or so. So that was the main sort of like eye opener that I'm screwing up with that. This is why it's really important to have a journal to be able to review and look back and see these things. And then I recognized that my main sort of mental flaw in terms of trading performance is getting into trades too early with thoughts such as this has to come down. I kind of call this getting married to an idea, where you just go, this is going to come down, I don't want to miss it. You panic, and in the end you get into trades that you really shouldn't do just because you have this fear of missing the potential move. So I went back through all of my shorts, and I always like to look at this case of identify the C game issues first. So you can sort of like, because they're going to be the biggest mistakes that can be improved on. So that was the daily charts having to be correct. So following my pre-market plan to scan for the right stuff. And then also this mental flaw of getting into trades too early. So once you figure that out, you can work on that. But it's also important to have a very clear idea of what your A grade setups look like. So that's what I did in here. I brought over pretty much all the shorts that I've either taken or missed in the moment or didn't execute particularly well but had the charts for. I've had this sheet for a while, added a few more from this month too. And essentially just went through and began categorizing them into stocks that are gapped up, into stocks that were strong, into gap downs, and some other sort of areas. And just began from those trying to identify what my A plus setup is. I've got a fairly decent amount of data here. I think it's in the region of 50 trades. Let's see from here. Yeah, in the region of 50 trades, 55 trades. 55 trade examples with win percentage of around about 2/3. So I've got plenty of data to go off of. And once I went through all of those, categorized them, spent a solid hour, I'd say, sort of like analyzing. I came up with some very clear rules for each of my, for sort of like 3 times I'd take a trade. So on a stock that gaps up, that is extended, I'm not going to be taking a trade before 10:30. And the very clear thing I needed was I needed a high of day failed breakout. A big mistake that I was making was taking trades like, find it, like this one on BTCS, where we got a spike at them in the morning, was strong, and then as soon as it got back under VWAP, I was seeing this as an opportunity to go short. The reality is that a strong stock or a stock that has gapped up, I need a false breakout signal that has trapped longs that can really indicate that there are no more people willing to buy at high, and the ones who have are going to have to get out of it. And we can see I made that mistake twice in a row on BTCS, 2 days in a row. So kind of screwed that one up. And I did a similar thing in the end on BBIG, where we've got a stock which has gapped up. It's strong. It breaks VWAP. And I'm like, this is perfect. We've now got a short opportunity. No, there was no false breakout. So these are trades I took last week that I thought weren't particularly good. And it was interesting when I look back to see that when I applied that rule, how many trades turned from being a B into a C. Same sort of thing on strong trades. The thing that I do like is to look for high of day, volume at high of day when it breaks to signal that buyers have come in and failed. I think that's a huge one. And then on gap downs, I'm fine with a clear opening range break to fail. It was a mistake I made on IMTE the first time I traded it, or one of the first times I traded it. It gave a very small spike, and I saw that as a move. Or I failed clear surge. So this needs to be 3 or more candles that give a clear strong move. Again, I was getting into a bit of a habit of seeing a few green candles that weren't really indicating much strength and thinking this is a false move higher. So I really just wanted to define what exactly was my approach and kind of just refocus my mind on, executing my setup, avoiding the C game mistakes, really sort of like singling out where the major issues are so that when I go into each day, I can have a goal of saying, okay, I want to execute based off of this, I want to wait for this and this, and just having clear red flags setting up. So yeah, like I said, last week, I think it shows a massive step forward for me personally that I can have a week where I lose 200, a little bit more than that, maybe like $250, $300, which is 3 times my maximum risk. I feel like I've done really badly. Um, that was definitely not what I thought was really bad not that long ago. So I think it's a step forward to have that, and I think it's important to look at my C game and go, my C game now is better than what my B game was 2 months ago. There's a lot of stuff in Jared Tendler's book, Mental Game of Trading, that I'd recommend anybody who's watching this to go get because it really helps. Um, so yeah, I think that's a big step forward. And then for today, obviously, biggest winning trade I've ever had. It was a bit fortunate with the circumstances and the way IMTE broke down. If anything, it's a little bit of a shame I didn't have a bit more size and I didn't hold for a little bit more. But again, we can't be perfect, and what we can do is try to improve that on next time. And the irony is that after last week feeling like I didn't trade all that well and didn't do great, I come out of it into today, after today, and actually I'm above the start of last week's. So I've essentially wiped out all of the losses of last week and the first loss of today in one trade, which is a pretty cool feeling. I'll really quickly go through just a few other opportunities that I think maybe I missed out on today. GMDA, like I said, I really wanted this to have a move off the open. I'm happy I didn't take this, even though it's a shame that it went. I wanted to see a false breakout, and we didn't have that. At the open, it sort of like chopped around in the first minute. I don't really watch the first candle all that much. Try to not anyway. Sort of my thought process here was if it could take out 320 and push back up into 326 and then fail, I'd be happy to get in. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. I would have been looking to then try to get 317, then add through low of day, and the first level of support wasn't until 290, and that would have been, for me, I'd have either got all out there or probably out on this dump here. So it was a little bit frustrating to watch this one go, especially after the week I had last week, because this would have been a really big trade as well. And then there was also potentially a trade on FATH. The thing that I don't love with this one is the volume is pretty low on it. It isn't up massively compared to its ATR, so it didn't quite make my my pre-market scan, but it was something that I was like, this could give a play. Thing is, it didn't give a false breakout, so again, happy I didn't take it, but it pushed into sort of like the all-time high. It couldn't go any higher. Got back under VWAP, short at VWAP, add through low of day, and at this point, who knows what it could do from here. And yeah, I mean, it's difficult because there's a lot of stuff which is selling off really easy right now. GMVD has again, it had this bounce. It came into sort of like a support from previous days at 555. It's a strategy I'm actually considering. The first bounce to identify on the 5 minute where the support, get rid of all this, where the key support from the last day was. And if we get into that and reject, then look for a short. And it technically did do that. It did have a bit of a breakout in here as well, where it took out this level. Lots of buying came in. Maybe there was an opportunity to get short around here somewhere, and it sells off, but it's not quite there yet. I'm happy that I just stay away from that. And then finally, MYNZ is not really actually doing anything, so we'll ignore that. So yeah, so like I said, a good day. Unfortunately, I missed out on, you know, SBEV a few days ago. This was the sort of thing that really made me realize that I'd slipped away from what I was trying to achieve, because I didn't even know at this point if this was a legitimate setup for me. It took out 380 after holding VWAP, should have gone, it failed. There was a very easy opportunity to get short in here. And like I said, this was the one that when I look back, I went, how have I missed this? And that's what triggered me to really dive into my stats and review process. Opportunity to get short into here and add here, and this thing just died for the rest of the day and beyond. So there were opportunities on this. So so yeah, that was just a recap. Obviously, I didn't make videos because I wasn't feeling great about my own trading, and although I do want to share the ups and downs, I've also got to go, if I'm feeling awful about it, do I really want to make videos at this point in my journey? Pile even more pressure on myself. So yeah, sorry I haven't made one for a week. Sorry that it's coming across as, oh, I only post winners. I really don't want it to be like that, because trading isn't like that, and last week definitely wasn't like that. But I hope that this video at least showed my process of how I went about trying to improve, and hopefully over the next few weeks we'll see that play out.